Everybody got it? Okay, good. Pace. Good. Plan of the United States federal government system sanctioning use of distribution of the United States by W federal jobs, UT phase 1 is economic zones and after recession produce rapid unemployment by shooting backwards workers on the labor side guarantees slow growth or secular stagnation. Dogs 22 pattern of recent section even after unemployment rates fall, labor force participation rate may depress more people away game, excluding minimally from labor markets because I'm not seeing wages increase related some of the decline in participation structural shifts cannot explain why participation countries with higher participation have more closely regulated markets. Americans are voluntarily leaving labor supply conditions explain very little chronically insufficient demand produces insufficient new job redundancy. Living key towards goal lower encourages workers to voluntarily leave in their growth, giving control lower jobs and wages, acting stagnation, natural evidence from many is that rates have fallen greatly. And was there currently a job indicator spotting in them in the fall, turn 13, the economy enters recession on average 77 years with the job guarantee places workers can transition without the job guarantee that face uncertain prospects of working misaccounts will go up over needs, stabilizes and not use the unemployed to stabilize inflation, reduces the cost of unemployment. And we job change away stagnation ensure that all economic growth is temporary as well. Only a job guarantee is often flow for future crises while adjusting enough productivity to overcome secular stagnation. Rate all 18 Americans are leaving the labor force. We job years second wages or living expansion provided by uncivil bubbles, while bubbles burst, we return to secular stagnation, division, aggregate, man, created discouraged worker effect, the U.S. operative association, labor side, that reduces the incentive to innovate a vicious cycle, disincentivizes, keeps no lower to increase aggregate demand and productivity growth, and secular economic stagnation is crisis accelerate, makes nuclear war prolific, trying to war and every other great power conflict more likely. Oppenheimer 21. Stagnation increases the likelihood of globalizing multipolarity, nationalism, to define a future that looks to ensure that the next recession will be nationalist. Government change goes radically towards the act to produce geopolitical conflict, lead to World War III, lower growth, jobless, and waste stagnation, and constitute perpetuating stresses, will continue lead of nuclear weapons, collapse, and arms control, NPT, accelerating arms race, augurs badly, and global war and existentialist, and not unless the U.S. supports relative economic decline, housewife isolation is not an option, there's a real danger of underreach, we go back to constant wars, we need a greater domestic base of narrow emerging global challenges like health, climate, terrorism, Berlin, and Russia, Iran, Korea, and China, and job guarantee stabilizing fleeting state revenues without triggering inflation. Bulletin 18, the JG will increase employment, this will result in increased resources, and stabilize the JG would function as a robust automatic stabilizer, maintaining employment during downturns, and that ensures state governments funding failures in their funding is inherently constrained by the plan solved using unlimited federal funds. Carpenter 20, federal, state, local services, and efficient the locals workforce levels and half a century opportunity would increase bargaining power, yet states have a weak capacity to respond to economic crises. States have nothing like the Federal Reserve to back their debt, and that's all state governance should is key to innovative emerging tech regulation. Bender 22, states have played a crucial role in policy. States can be centers of policy innovation. States tend to be better at coalitions support major policy actions. States and a long drive for progress and change the federal system wills and allows flexibility to innovate drive policy innovations, including AI, biomass, and blockchain energy that are becoming more difficult to achieve at a federal level. States without scanning energy, chain technology have incentives of innovation foreign policy. States which take the lead in supply chain resilience and preserve the viability and the strength of the U.S. and the world order. Extinction, best for 14 emerging diverse survival and present global risk of diseases, biotech diseases, we need to manage them appropriately and develop adaptive institutions. We can survive nuclear war, new technology pose a greater risk for humanity. Advantage 2 is workers. The first scenario is agriculture jobs. The plan provides global recycling programs, solves regenerative and industrial agriculture, water pollution from agriculture, runoff, and sustainable ocean farming. Tertiary 22 for second programs to save the ocean, message and implement sustainable fishing, ocean farming, and free construction, coastal communities, upper massive employment, big agriculture has led to visa practices, water crisis, and has reduced water crisis, soil erosion, making up auto consistent, sustainable agriculture, and critical reliance on regenerative farming. The JG can multiply CSAs by focusing on sustainable agriculture and improving U.S. soil health, supercharges agriculture productivity, and loss in global food security. It's reverse natural, Geiger 21. Degraded soils reduce average by up to 40% in the Midwest. Engineering South found that degraded soils have 60% lower yields and turns global food insecurity, and food insecurity goes nuclear. Group 22, hungry souls in the government failures, and civil wars and refugees from all regions of the world that are high risk of failure and conflict in the future, ranging from riots and future nuclear war, and nuclear pollution as existential collapses oceans and outweighs climate change. U.S. runoff reduction buys time to confront extinction. Craig 22, there are two boundary farming worse than climate change. Nutrient pollution is a marine problem. If you don't know for air excessive fertilizers and nutrients and neutralized foods as balloons dial, the number of decimals has doubled. The entire producing trends can lower the chance of the entire planet eventually causes specials. Reducing marine nutrient pollution in the U.S. by humanity and now time to figure out solutions. Scenario 2 is unions. Biden will inevitably push democratic norms globally, but weak domestic unions ensures that authoritarianism prevails. Thorough 23, the Biden priorities illustrated shifts in the U.S. thinking being focused on organized labor and the democracies. Unions are essential to democracy. We need to manage them as labor strong naval movements. Biden cast himself as pro-union, how their rhetoric translates into meaningful action is more complicated. Biden embarked on the modest labor efforts unions. The capacity to force political change outweighs Smaller organizations studies when the Democratic line in the West is important for the U.S. to use the cloud of economic power to support workers and plans vital to resurrect unions and empower the working class. The Cell 19 of JG means traditional working public workers program come out in the articles of the solution that work rate comparison makes a little sense. Workers would be emboldened to strike the workforce itself would grow. A JG would make mass unionization a possibility. With a weak union movement, it's unclear how earners would have social leverage and only job guarantee tax the economic beliefs at the root and inequality building social solidarity is key. 17 a JG can transform the social safety and strengthen social solidarity beliefs inequality stacking wages and it's destabilizing and diminishing the labor force participation popularization threats to collapse American society only empowering unions and the working class can prevent violent escalation. Section 23 popularization when the economy of fortunes abroad was declined by millions per capita quadruple other relative wage decline and percentage of social right to state popular violence against America's current economy might require a violent revolution and U.S. breakdown goes global nuclear causes extinction like in 17 a civil war and in America, China, Korea, Russia, Korea, and Iran was restored whatever war doesn't third war with nuclear powers will fall. Scenario 3 is the CDC. We are in the face of an incoming syndemic variant consisting of new viruses and variants and the risk is higher. Evidence uses the best analysis. Spread 23. The U.S. is a sitting duck in the face of a syndemic virus. U.S. rates of hospitalization and the RSV of the flu are also on the rise. U.S. sees a surgeon. Case of the Michael pneumonia, recent UK strain of swine flu. New to humans, experts are eyeing variant viral of B826. Their rates past rate of spread to higher than anticipated. Winter surge levels doubling each week for the past 4 weeks. And in the face of such race, the CDC is shedding jobs, but a federally directed jobs guarantee solves. Carbon 20. The CDC has been shedding jobs. The federal government to shut up funded structures, public service productivities, supply physicians, capacity of agencies and local governments is weak. Critics have pointed to the lack of personnel and decision making and reliance on lobbyists ensures more resilient and secure. JG ensures more resilient and secure public infrastructure. Americans can transform the whole country into one ready for the next pandemic. And the CDC managed jobs program is a linchpin of an effective national response. Model Deal 20. The program for contracting will take global power. This is one of the only many of the pandemic task which are understaffed the health system badly needs to interrelated problems. One, people out of jobs. The government needs to expand its workforce. The solution is 300,000 full-time contract trainers managed by the CDC to be recruited, trained, and hired. Nationwide program coordinated priorities established standardized protocols and reach the CDC has internal knowledge to run something like this. Contract tracing is a very easy job to train for rather than any degrees. Workers from a wide range of backgrounds to participate. State actors dealt with it. The automatically a job guarantee would make us far more prepared for the next crisis. Public health force. Here's some of them. We have be redirected to everything from infectious disease to cancer, or choices of mass death, or a federally held public health works. And unmitigated pandemics cause extinction. Demand is 22. How to face the next pandemic, even worse pandemics that threaten the existence of the human race. Pandemics result in the complete shutdown of civilization and extinction of new variants, mutations were invaded by weakening antibodies global to help us realize that we may be sitting on top on billions of other viruses are waiting with what endanger the existence of other inhabitants on planet Earth. And independently, CDC staffing shortages to our private sector biotech innovation. Bros at 23, the CDC will be fully unable to prepare for the next vector. It's not a question of whether such illness will occur when cutting the CDC sends a message to weaken private sector's willingness to invest in vaccines will result in the elimination of the research project that will make it more new research at a time when biotechnology and big pharma are experiencing downward decreased federal funding is a formula for scientific regression. And biotech decline allows the Chinese sector to overtake American pharma. Extinction 120. No good Russia. None of experts have voted to have a more exotic threat in the previous days about nuclear weapon studies by biotech. And China is a whole new threat. China is catching up. China is competing with the U.S. nations by nationalism and the U.S.
Okay. Anything else?
Yes, sir. I'm good.
Okay, cool. The plan itself, how is it funded?
Deficit spending.
Okay, cool. The resilience advantage, you talk about how recessions are inevitable and can lead to secular stagnation. How do you increase aggregate demand through a jobs guarantee?
Well, the idea is that when recessions do occur, we have to limit the fallout, and during that period of secular stagnation,
but in order to
means
prevent secular stagnation, you need to create aggregate demand to continue economic activity. I'm asking how the plan would be able to do that.
right. The plan uses workers. The 1AC has identified that the root cause of secular stagnation is unemployment. 1AC evidence, Donjas 22 and Ray et al. 18 say that Americans are leaving the labor force now, which means that
Why are Americans leaving the labor force?
right, because they don't have accessibility to jobs. Our Ray et al. 18
So why would people
identifies that.
leave jobs just because they're inaccessible?
Well, as in like they don't have easy access to them.
So
Some of
people
them are,
get jobs and then they leave them because they're not accessible?
well, right now the 1AC has identified that people are not working currently.
They're not
The
working
JG
or they're leaving their jobs.
Americans are not in the workforce.
Okay, why would Americans want the jobs guarantee program? How does it make it more accessible?
Because you don't have to apply. It's open to everybody. It's accessible.
So you can just show up and get a job.
Yes. Yes.
So under that presumption, then there's no job training included to get a future job?
What? Yes, there is job training. I don't know why that's.
So you can just show up, but you still have to get job training? How would that work?
You show up and you get job training.
Okay, do you need to be qualified for these jobs?
No.
So
CDC
why are we trusting people who do not have qualifications to work in biomedicine
Well,
to work for the CDC?
Right, this is a good question. Our Carpenter 20 and Martindale 20 evidence say that these jobs are very simple, says that these jobs aren't complicated
So if they're
at
so
all.
simple,
Things
why
like
is the CDC
contract
shredding
chasing.
them?
CDC's, the 1AC has identified that the root cause of CDC's downfall is they just don't have people to do it. Like,
Wait, it says the CDC is shredding jobs. That means that they're getting rid of the opportunity for people to work. It doesn't seem like they don't have enough people from your Martindale evidence.
The Carpenter 20 evidence says that the CDC is not having enough jobs.
Okay, that's fine. Why is the federal government key?
First is the entire second scenario, and the first advantage says that states don't have the fiscal capacity.
That's fine.
Second, states literally cannot do the plan. It's the CDC, that's a federal agency. Like, the states can't touch that. That's
Okay.
a federal agency.
Got that. The union stuff, specifically, why are unions good to counter authoritarianism?
Right, the 1AC has identified that unions are the root cause. Without unions, popular conversation emerges. It's because that
Okay, we've had like
workers.
anti-union legislation before, and we haven't seen the rise of
Well, right,
protests.
it's not about legislation. The 1AC says that we need to give power to the workers because then only then they can fight back against the corporate and like exploitive private sector companies. Giving them the power.
Let me see some. We're gonna be 6 off advantage one.
Give me a sec.
Enter. Fiscal redistribution is income taxes on the rich. Pathway 21. Redistribution refers to policy designed to influence distribution of income, fiscal policy, and reducing inequality, poverty, tax control, and taxing the risk of income of wealth at a higher rate than the poor, which can benefit the poor more than redistribution can also function as insurance. B. Violation of the plan isn't an increase in income tax. C. The voting issue. One limits their unlimited number of taxes and fees the act can use to fund their plans breaks the topic of making a tax will be half inevitable. 2. Ground. Income tax is linked to politics, the economy, and federalism are essential. Coordinate ground with their intent force list to pour through tax legislation to find DA ground. Next off. The United States federal government should stockpile critical supplies, secure vital facilities, improve coordination among the federal government, conduct exercises to contest readiness, establish a national emergency immunization program, and provide a basic income. Solves Colony 21. We live in a vulnerable world, disease, running blood, financial system, acting, no attack, rise up from climate change, vulnerability, decision, with vital intervention, and mitigation away from housing, and other pandemic, and state agency, rise to mitigate vulnerability, governance, emergency government, and it's designed to provide energy control, public disrupt systems laid out, starting to prevent disaster backlogs, reverse tax, private dispensation, stockpiling, advisor, zero facilities, governance, like obligations, and a range of future catastrophes. Next one. A. The plan results in sustainable ag transition and tweaks after commercial ag. What is the author of Shaniga 22? The JD mentions unnamed resources, the JD can employ sustainable farming, and deploy the unemployed, indigenous, captured, and help with the community, the world, commercial ag concentration, agriculture, and began sustainable ag because they will rise up and farming, communities, CSNG, get multiple year farm project, and building on sustainable ag. B. GM tech advances industrial ag, sustainable and necessary to feed the population and solve global warming. Dr. Fedorov, 2K11. GM crops have been improved using capitalization, pensibility, chemical fertilization, better fertilization, increase must be double 23 new methods of cooperative ways, they're both word about that and credibility of other messages. GM crops are pesticides, good for environmental because of pesticides, poison rivers, lakes, and oceans, neutral farming increases soil erosion, agricultural farming footprint. C. High yield tacky is all extinction laws. As living changes in the oceans, we mentioned new crop areas, but new crops and rabbits need to be complemented to technology, getting equipment, and considering demands, the plot disaster, reducing how much the way to crops and failed the rocket from the mortgage, at least only those tech survival after another problem. It's technically the only one about property nets and now they should be but then the main kind of the end of the plan, technology managed to increase food supply, and only primary hard to maintain civilization. Next up. The United States federal government should provide conditional direct money transfers to the state governments for the purpose of ensuring no hassle below the federal poverty line, conditional upon state effective implementation of a jobs guarantee. The United States federal government should provide a basic income in persons to states that refuse to direct money transfer or prove incapable of ensuring that no household within the state lives below the federal poverty line, and expand CDC hiring and funding. The counterplan solves and avoid politics while removing federalism and state experimentation. Phase 22. FG enact legislation to tax those vendor rise federalism and have FG to fund it attention to the capacity by direct connection to state government conditional fiscal transfer applying the system currently states enact policies to generate socioeconomic mobility after you state broad discussion over events as state by reject the federal government capable of using them in such situation FG legislative direct payments to households and chart no has to live below the federal poverty line the micro fiscal feasible safeguard provided Minnesota and federal will be taken broad legislation environment with policy learn and neighboring state community and federal policy whatever and just providing a greater fiscal autonomy requires federal fiscal transfers. That experimentation is key to effective nanotech regulation. Drop-in 11. Federal regulatory schemes and natural has to respond to the risks of nanotech and nanotech regulators that have coordination of ability to rise and policy regulation can be justified in tracing community government flexibility to the state's laws to reduce experimentation and responsiveness, left to customer difficulty utilize federal regulation and state could generalize data to fill knowledge gaps. Extinction of RH 22. Nanotech is clear military terrorist usually restricted after nanotech or point defense to distinct that dissimilarity the ability of all the above the events of the detective difference control design biological microbial complex biological involved immune system the reproductive community escape control the germanic self-error there's now what's about the humanity control we be able to maintain control we lost control we no way stopping. Next off. The plan presents a quadrilemma. Fiscal redistribution causes capital flight. The link alone turns case. Amendment 21. Capital flight presents a quadrilemma train as three goals from the next line. Never afforded to time to approve of the goals making from the expansion of the other goals. Provide investment feasibility to choose goals. Investment limit policy applied by egalitarian conceptions. Investor will choose productive investment because taxes are lower. Capital flight can be put pressure on redistributive policies. Tax rate criteria investor limiting when it comes to redistribution. The emergency start. The redistribution not benefit investors. Investor limit policy going against capital base with goal benefit welfare investors raise productivity increasing income and capital tax around basis available for studying even small difference accumulated today safety to make it harder to companies that avoid paying tax companies on stronger funding fund overlooking the real investment solving problem holding render capital flight more prominent. Capital flight from the US collapses the global economy. Inflow is strong now. Life Rate Check 20. Inflow from the US and the helping finance policies need to stimulate the economy. They mandate hard work to make it all strong ability capital to be beyond the financial system strength. Capital flight from the US and Canada react from crisis and emerging economies to carry the whole world economy down. Fiscal calibration decimates markets that guarantees extinction and ensuring global change access and bringing societal adoption. Why started all 22 hours. Small sugar impacts the tipping point, economic vulnerability, and applied in the near term with concerns about inflation, heightening risk of miscalibration, irritation, most of other risks. Escalation key helps in Ukraine, Israel, Taiwan, powers to temple into ruin guardrails, the long-term shift in economic fragility, contribute to economic foundation, volatility, current world range of powers, interested in escalating the conflict here involved in nuclear and color risk of an emergent escalation. What are the first advantages? On the resilience advantage. 1. No impact to stagnation. Post 16. Comments are related to justified fears are in time that the U.S. is growing more sustainable and economic rates and letting clear more sustainable conditions are provided by public policies and relies on funds to increase the resilience and sustainable economies and create room for stimulus. 2. AI impact is wrong. Figure 18. Global cloud is based on more nature and world power than one step into the advancement goals or attempting using intelligence being smart is not the same as wanting something that there's a lot of complex system related to dimension or this can be stored with a code variation and give you the result of a bit of brain about this negative software field independent premises one human search and completely confounded and optimizing eyes and more accurately predicting the whole universe without testing it into the sub-billion environments. It was so we were using recovery on evolution letters and this was getting the ability to choose an actual business satisfying goals is not an education is something for the solid intelligence. 3. No blockchain impact. Movement 21. Bitcoin's intrusion on any ever degree for what it has carbon rails or we would not be any single crypto or their renewable and economic activity, but which is an econ and high technology and all crypto, and I become hardest or given up, or per on just hacking us all the much cheaper and easier to check it. They haven't heard of answer. Italy investors will have money in drawing new investors narrative for crypto tells us technology benefits offering revolutionary tech and blockchain is dealt with as a use to find any uses for revolutionary drive of sources combined currency with the popular again, known as founders for going is irrelevant. 4. Renewables fail. Barth et al. 19. It is not enough for any tech to emerge, and they must all replace the other ones, including infrastructure questions, so including infrastructure knowledge about it, which creates inertia, lock-in, building highway, amendment, along with the lax, using more renewable sensing, because there's user energy, one way to settle systems, even the decisions that we reduce and active down with the pricing happen, fashion of the needs that we already need to build nuclear power knowledge, as pattern is needs, urban intelligence, computers not right about the previous office. Workers' advantage. 1. 1, no food insecurity, no food wars. Figure 11, high card shortage is a common and worse than high card slavery, now work class housing work, ordinance and market defense, more government economy, ideology, availability, or because of a company that more likely to become a board is not of itself from social degradation, it large and share paying school would do because scarcity of support. 2, no nutrient pollution, seaweed members fills down nitrogen and ferments over entering water sources. Terminal 14, protection of the chemical growth by the regenerated today, olive and nuclear, filter from DNA, fertilizer, reaching down the water like spoons, carbon nature, and waterway filling up, combustion at harmful attitude, but if I don't like this, I will just make ecosystems. Red battery community helps nutrient before they ever leave the farm. 3, no democracy scenario, global accessing in all causes or it's resilient. Low ran at all 17, no more seats taking child country, Venezuela, average democracy in the world, the highest work levels, judicial political institutions, are resilient examples of Macron, just Trump. 4, no impact of populism, institutions tax Joe spill out. Agriculture 17, levels of overrated compensatory races related to the little kind of democratic party, but also violence in society, for the economy, rural, levels of the confident rule, large numbers of attractive parties. 5, on cost and turn, CDC is failing to impotence, not having shortfalls. Miller and Everson 22.
I'll handle it, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just want to confirm you didn't read the DOL this time. Or, so you read everything. Okay. Let's go to the counter plan, the second one. Stockpile critical supplies.
Any reasons for reject?
T.
Other than T, case back?
Yeah.
Cool.
Alright. What stockpile critical piles? What are those?
Yeah, I think if you look at our Phaser 22 card, it specifically talks about how like creating stockpiles of necessary goods actually prevents the sort of
Yeah, I just don't know what stockpiles are. That's what I'm asking.
okay, well it's stockpiles of resources to like
Like resources
more
for what?
resilient systems.
So like economic resilience system, is this about ag? I just have no idea.
We think it solves the ag advantage as well as the CDC advantage.
What are they?
The supplies to help solve your advantages.
Yeah, but like, are these like food things? Are these like economic things? Like,
Not economic, it would be the food stuff.
food? Okay.
I don't think you can
I
have a
think in the face
stockpile
of-
of money, that would make sense.
We think in the face of emergencies, like these sort of preparedness measures, will
It's like this is really
maintain
big.
stability.
Like, what type? How would this be funded? Like, what type of piles are you adding? Like, you just said CDC and food. Are you putting like bananas and vaccines together? Like, what's going on?
I mean, we think the federal government should stockpile the necessary resources to respond in an emergency that can look like, sure, vaccines, like in
Sure.
many
What's the net
diseases.
benefits to the counter plans?
The capital flight DA and the renewable ag DA.
So, so both are the.
No, the first one are those two decides, the second one is internal.
Okay. So the second one is internal. You said.
Yes.
What is the internal?
Nanotech regulation through state effective
Oh, the
governments.
fourth one is internal. Got it.
Well, yeah, there's only 2 counter plans.
Oh, okay, you meant second. Oh, okay, my fault. Let's go to the link on the capital flight decide. What is it?
Sure, we think that fiscal redistribution, the removal of
The
wealth
card says,
from the
quote, taxes are merely the most obvious policy states. 1AC cross-act shows that we don't do taxes. Why does this decide apply to us?
We think that fiscal redistribution broadly, the removal of wealth.
Right, but this card is
wealth
like
to the
in
poor.
specific context of tax. Like every paragraph mentions
You
taxes.
said deficit spending, which a form of deficit spending could include taxing those if deficit spending becomes inflationary.
Can you explain how that works?
Sure, if too much inflation occurs, they'll tax the wealthy to ensure that inflation does not spill over. That's
Sure.
what deficit spending is.
That's not what deficit spending is. But let's go to the ag decide. Can you explain why industrial ag is good?
Sure, I think our Better Off card specifically talks about genetically modified crops being better for food and decreasing pollution.
A starting now.
funds?
Yeah.
636 left. Yeah.
Wait. Let me get my navigation.
View within that. First thing.
Well, it's
It's the order.
I'll give it on everybody else. Yeah. It's so Advantage 1, advantage 2. T. The advantage counter plan. I have to add this at next on the flow, but I'm just gonna do the states counter plan. And then the capital fight this at, and then the ag this at. I'll give the order again.
I still haven't gotten it off. I have
Is anyone else got it?
Yeah, I got it.
Okay, cool. I'll give it again once you all get it. Just let me know.
Okay. I don't know what you're doing. Oh, I just got it.
Cool.
Let me go. Okay.
Cool. So, yeah.
Drop CDC, no coming back. Employers on resilience. That what is he one to impact to stagnation wrong? Their evidence is wrong. Posting is re-COVID doesn't assume labor conditions. Stagnant wages or supply chain collapse that concedes public policy that can improve resilience. Now I want to see Drew Pinker's wrong. It's not in context of globalized innovation. Remember when I see Brexit 14 that specifically warns why emerging technology innovations have an extensive impact when globalized, not just in the US. Then they said no blockchain impact. That's wrong. It's not even the app. And through policy innovation, that's how we do the app. Through emerging tech, then they said renewables fail. I didn't read renewables fail. I read the wrong blog. And they said 1 and C1 new food insecurity impacts wrong. He flows out when food insecurity is combined with war conditions, i.e. income and jobs, line escalates. Said 1 and C2 no nutrient pollution wrong. They don't assume this quote. The short evidence is great about how this quote shows now that dead zones and nutrient pollution is escalating now. Unions. At 1 and C1, they said no impact to populism wrong. Doesn't assume civil war, income and jobs that all boost chances. That's the Haas evidence that says that they're escalating now. CDC. Dropped it. Don't account their link turn. They didn't read the card. Don't give them to this. And don't do cards and they do it C. T. One, we need to plan to physically review of via data spending. Transfer can be done without taxes. Not saying is to address marginalized people in the workforce. We got to say even about poverty, little W. I'm going to do 170 billion more people enter the workforce. We got, but we have everything else. The government will cut to check show you how this can be done with inflation while you have your other tax reduce. Counter termination physically review can be either tax or transfer of other two vehicles or redistribution. Cover they need redistribution. The tax transfer of both factors very little due to taxation. There should be greater use of taxes. There should be people on monthly benefits. Maybe keep the load of 1 and 3. Remember, A, but do you believe we're not as good at advantage of line of power? Is it even a video? Maybe always because of I try to be out ground on well. Tax to keep the advantage of innovation. The reason they give it again for the next CEO function limit 60 home politics and reduce factor. Reasonability good is good enough. Community plus a race to the bottom. 4 plaintiffs and vacuums. No arbitrary method for topic. Eating rejection all top topics. Solve other rapid 5 aspects. All limited to the income. We felt the burgers for asking to yellow. And multis or I progressive taxation. Advantage counterplay. 1 permitted vote, 2 permitted counterclaim, 3 permitted other issue, 4 condoms of voting issue, incentivize using over the last of these control object, and then incentivize contradictions in between making it possible to make obvious class. They should only have 1 condom, 5 months, everything down to rather reason rejected team grades, validating over pointless playing, 6 playing vagueness is a voting issue, every play. The written is unbelievably vague, 7 can't solve the CDC unemployment and funding means, then they can't solve our biotech consider it, and 9 doesn't solve unions, there's nothing to give the direct power to the worker, and the plan solves wildfire children, and do blah blah, means the loss of rights, the local community shows a lot, but it seems that human condition prevention is not going to be as a requirement in need of barely scratches the surface, genre, JG workers, precision better, the opportunity to alive, and wildfire spots, because the 18 got trophies around the world have been scientifically linked to both. Precision disruptions is in the pursuit of existential that we lose too much. Home process will be undermined if food and water could be interrupted. Hazards and epidemics have already. Other regulation disruptability reduces the prices if we exceed risk of civilization for times of high temperature dries. Forest fire will become more severe. Interacting factors of loss of memories, flushing of vegetation, dried out with strong winds and ignition. I'll mark the card there. I'll do the blank. Do the last blank. Get into the last blank is incredibly vague. What are stockpiles? Bill solves the or CDC or agriculture because he can't solve nutrient pollution, which causes extinction. I'll skip the state's counterclaim. 1 permitted vote shields a link looks like federal deficit spending meeting of all the state reserve banks. 2 permitted counterclaim. 3 all this gives the money to the state. The counterclaim cannot solve what the administration will plan for. The counterclaim can solve the city only the asymmetry game 6 13 A states can solve disease prevention. B they also don't solve farm innovation. C is not only the defense law of 18, only the federal government has the capacity to design a countercyclical budget. D the counterclaim can solve the CDC scenario. CDC is a federally directed program. C means that the federal government cannot use the CDC overseeing state and local government coordination review of federal financial system, development model state and local official to review and coordinate with the federal financial system to direct the federal agency. By the law, skip E and F 4 links to that and use the argument that federal government will reach alternatives to resources is true. The same as 5 federal farmer principal limitation of plan of states already doing the plan specifically with the government resource all profits. And 756 beyond is a voting issue, not below the 56 I've ever had. Cooperating on a single issue of conformity, there's no limit. All states cooperating, and the capital fight is that. One case legal internal links to the determinants that disavow technologies mobilized and developed through the CDC, which is a higher sequence you the one you see evidence is given about first subject. You can know how to complain through either the biotech industry, leave the US about absent the CDC, none of the biotech still applies to the outcomes first 2 non-unique biotech industry capital pressure. Now CDC investment consulting. Murphy 23, IPO America was responsible for return, which is the problem with the IPO machine brings it had. There's simply not enough IPOs to return all the venue capital has been invented to destroy biotech startups. There was a fortune in the last option getting about it. This is a real option for companies to start growing the supply of the capital was a matter of the capital increase the business companies startups and venture growth is this is a lot of is drawing up the dates time for the public market disruption of village out there. I'm getting the domino evolving the way the public market is shaking out. There's plenty of capital for the highest quality companies, not so much for anything else. Capital is regularly normal companies that have cash facing under the paying. No longer remains under pressure of the motive of VC. When people are some of the more challenging because of the 2003 no later quad relevant evidence is the concept of increased tax, not tax spending, but also list all costs to investor limiting policies like environmental regulation, labor rights, and infrastructure investment. Or you should reject the link evidence every policy you need, but there's no history of regulatory competition resulting in a race to the bottom. And 21, back to the regulatory competition, not led to a general race to the bottom because states can do the exception promotion. We don't never think the list of capital federal looking at only the general tender track. And 5, there's no risk of a unique link commerce review. So we're violating America to become increasingly funded in the offshoring and your sharing of lives over the US economy. We're not using economy while we not will fully short term 80% of use. So we're going to be over offshore to the damage of it. Only been because the reminder we're we just work with doing their work over halfway across the globe. Latin America is the key player for the offshore industry. Their direction, the destination where the company looking to offshore IT services in the region of advantages in terms of human Asia and cultural compatibility, cost effectiveness, meaning recently the effective offshore produce business to take for survey businesses at the apps key to restore constantly which taught capital and 36, it's almost just negative. Owners expecting the condition decline to negative 50% of inflation the most important in operating their businesses, expressing concerns with the future condition lower year. Those all firms being demanded 9% and expect rules to be higher than negative 21%. Wins of love John Green New World hiring 7 and internal in China's factor. The biotech industry is still back into behind the US Biden initiative reserve. Initiative more 21 if I actually won't read 7. 8. No internal link, no industry overlap between guaranteed jobs and biotech. The plan spurs an area with low job creation will train under skilled workers for low skilled jobs. There's zero connection to the biotech industry, which is powered by high potential. The government utilizes only doctors in university research at the high level. Offers research at university. And 9. Statistical analysis concludes physiology evidence in background is confidence person. 11. The increase in government consumption has no effect on business government estimating coefficient for growth rate in money. New government consumption are incentive increase in move government is also and 10. One read 10. 11. Do a survey about business market downward trends. By 16 owners are expecting 1 million. Actually, I already read this card. Industrial ag is unsustainable. One assumptions, even shrubs. Solutions are occurring. No evidence big ag is sustainable. Spend 20 years on just regretted reducing animal culture. Would rapidly reduce the most who knows we might sequence out to make it safer. 2 antibiotics. There's evidence is assuming it overrides the disease means they wouldn't be able to account for the CDC scenario. Avian flu, the most infectious disease mutation. Who makes this virus less likely to hide humans in an industrial factor environment. Keeping closure where antibiotics are really given to the emergency. Then circulated medicine, the effectiveness of modern medicine, major infection, disease threats, and even co-comfort animals. Now I'll send these cards 3 no link to evidence about commercial ad trading off of them. The internal link is about genetically modified technologies. There's literally zero link. If they want to go for this ad, please do. 4, turn the plan increases food insecurity with the biggest internal link, solving for nutrient pollution, which went dropped. 5, turn the plan increases by innovation by reutilizing state. 6, no impact. The cause says that GM is key to preserve a technological society, not all society, which means that case would immediately
There's
outweigh.
no extinction impact.
And there's no extinction impact. They've dropped the CDC scenarios in disease
Read
impact.
the last 2 cards
Yeah.
out of the Capitol.
Okay.
Wait, did you read the Trump?
No, I didn't. Show.
Yeah, read.
I read that. I cannot find it. Basic income is unpopular, makes Biden.
Biden's gonna just read off.
Okay. Biden is going to win now. Republicans will lose the presidential. Donald Trump is the nominee. I think Biden wins the president. Also, I know hardship with Trump followers in Congress, which will also then they're not interested in governing and finding a solution. Basic income is unpopular, makes Biden lose. Philosopher 15 ideas that support for UBIs, to building a sustainable coalition to favor of equality, activists, party members, platform across factions to use on source resources, political capital support is birthing of the case of UBI, going to potential will happen unless he said to make sense. Other objective opportunity costs may be to provide be sustainable support, look out protected, so we're reaction of other random others and respect mankind and will create a strong social value. And Tom Win sparks nuclear warfare, 23 is from Georgia to the White House and exhibit rationality against order nuclear weapons without any implication of chain off again. Demand disobedience stronger university, you give it an advantage to come to be nuclear war.
Some of the states count.
Wait, did you send out the?
It was already in there, I just didn't read it earlier.
Reasons to reject the team.
Oh wait, one sec, let me stop my cross. Alright, I'm good.
Okay. Reasons to reject.
Yeah, condo, multi-plane counter plans, plane vagueness, 50 state fee off.
On the Madison counter plan, you say that it can't solve implementation. Why is the federal government key to implement the plan?
Right, because we specifically made warrants, like, I can just pick one scenario for you right now, the CDC scenario. It's a federally directed program. Well, we've already read a card about why state and local government coordination of financial assistance and development follows that they cannot do the plan that way. It's just not possible.
Okay,
We
you
made like
solved the
legal
CDC
arguments why the
scenario.
Madison counter plan cannot solve.
You solve the CDC scenario by creating jobs for the CDC, correct?
Yeah, well, I mean, we would create contact tracing programs, that's stuff that we specified in the Martindale 20 evidence.
Okay, gotcha. On the Capital Flight DA,
Yeah.
the China's biotech is behind. Okay, I guess what's the difference between the biotech scenario
I didn't read
that
that
you've
card. I
outlined?
didn't read that card. By the way, I'm just letting you know. The Chinese biotech divide. Fine.
Okay. On the resilience advantage.
Yeah.
You say that stagnation causes extinction. There was a huge lack of growth during COVID. Why didn't that cause extinction?
Well, what I would say is that like what you're doing is based off this POSIN 16 card. That's pre-COVID. Dantis 23 is way after COVID. Specifically says why and like doesn't assume current labor conditions, stagnant wages, or even like what also Dantis says are supply chain collapses that all concede that like there's stagnation now and that there's a huge impact. We specifically cited that it could impact China and Russia now. Our evidence is
Okay,
like
how
7
does-
years more recent.
Is the only internal link stagnant wages?
No, I literally just stated off 3 things. I'm sure there's more Dantis says, but labor conditions, stagnant wages, and like supply chain collapses.
Okay, how would the plan solve supply chain collapse?
Well, first of all, the
Solving
job here,
unemployment.
yeah,
Identifies the root cause.
exactly.
Okay, so the root cause is still labor conditions.
Yeah, I mean that's the whole entire point of the federal job here.
Okay, gotcha. On the workers advantage,
Yeah.
the food insecurity, if people are starving, why would they go to war?
Right. Wait, what?
You say that food insecurity causes war, so I'm
Right.
asking why.
Because the Crib 22 evidence says, I'm pretty sure it's Crib, specifically says that like one, like food insecurity in the past empirically has been combined with poor incomes, poor jobs in the United States or globally. It escalates like government tensions, which escalates the impact.
Okay, so is the internal link just low economic growth?
I'd say so, but like no, it's more about the government. So like if one government, like you could think about it like this: if one government maybe perceives another government as weak because they have food problems and I mean people are dying, then obviously that government could try and attack.
Okay, advantage. 624.
You stop.
Madison counter plan.
Oh, I'll wait.
Is it pencil out?
Yes.
Madison counter plan. Advantage counter plan. Advantage 1. Advantage 2.
I still have the document.
Okay. It's just like slow in here. Just let me know.
I got it.
Anyone not good? Okay. And all y'all good? Okay.
They have answered the wrong counterplan. Most of their arguments do not apply. The counterplan only fiat to SFG action by giving the states the federal funds to do the counterplan. Dropped nanotech net benefit means it starts at 100% risk, which means we only need to run a small risk. We only need to win if the counterplan solves in order to have you comfortably vote now. The counterplan gives conditional funding to the states to implement an individual jobs guarantee. The states would implement individual programs in that state and continue to receive funding from the federal government each year to continue these programs. The OIRA will audit the states to make sure each state is using the funds effectively and implementing progressive programs that resolve inequality and poverty. If the states reject the federal funds or fail to implement the programs, the federal government would only claw the funds back into an individual basic income to each person living at that state at the level necessary to bring each person in the state out of poverty. The counterplan also increases CDC funding and unemployment. This is a plan that they've dropped, which will solve all of their CDC deficits. This is not linked to the net benefit though, because the plan is an actual policy that could ample state innovation. They have dropped a net benefit. Start this on your flow. The counterplan revitalizes state experimentation and federalism, giving the states funding and latitude to create their own versions of the plan. Revitalizes state experimentation and then strategies for policy development. Fraser says that it's been stifled by federal intervention and mandates in the welfare and fiscal realm that spills over and facilitates state implementation in other areas. That's necessary because states are the only effective means of regulating nanotech. The states need to be experimenting on policies to be effective. That outweighs first, self-replicating nanobots cause microscopic machines to wipe out humanity. Second, when nano-weaponization could be used by AI terrorists or militaries that wipe them, get them out of containment and wipe out humanity, which charts all of their scenarios. First, is prone to both. First, it links to net benefit. USG still does the plan, which means they can't substantiate experimentation. Second, bureaucracies fail. This should link turn all of their democracy stuff. A, agency overreach and conflicting goals. Meyer and all 19. In the U.S., multiple sources of political power, complicated process, legislative, executive entities make different demands, and implementation process phase with competing non-traditional demands that government democracy was linked to this one, carefully, bureaucracy was not like to turn goals and implement resources, but will not get them multiple competing goals, and meaning and media visible, demand practices, resolutions, resources, but they feel for effective policy, bureaucracy, too much too little. B, expanding federal bureaucracy makes the plan less effective. At verse 21. By enforcing a plan to expand federal pension jobs with the FT, the worst innovation, and tackle government suffers from severe and political, bureaucratic, and all shortfall, making it a horrible disaster, suffering for the credibility of the French poverty system, and a weak bureaucratic system, federal actions run on desperate plans and limitations of failures, and the failures that we did not fair government's lack, knowledge government planning, course of actions, knowledge of specific, government systems, programs, and transitable to formula, and power, and plan, and access, right, labor, and the federal agencies and officials of our government, and the performance deteriorate. See, this turns to the entire act cost of the act of the cost of societal backlash. At verse 21. By this programs and regulations, which generate negative
rules deference is the voting issue for fairness. In ground A of federal jobs guarantees in the states, Thompson 21. In the U.S., the federal government versus national government 50 states are not federal. B, adopt requires implementation. Lock therefore. Adopt means not only to enact the policy but to implement it. Second, the counter plan is direct cash transfer to the states to institute a jobs guarantee that is not a jobs guarantee. The plan is a unconditional cash transfer from the federal government to the citizens. The counter plan only results in the BI if the states don't use the funds correctly, or if they say no to the counter plan's condition. 3, it isn't certain the counter plan might result in a jobs guarantee, but states might say no. The plan is certain. A, should. Saying 15, if should is ruled is mandatory, then may or could is avoided, generally not mandatory. B, resolved OED 89, free from doubt or uncertainty. Next, 2AC3 was that the counter plan wouldn't fail for administration. The order mechanism would ensure that the counter plan would be able to effectively implement individual programs, plus the PI mechanism would incentivize them. 4, through the solvency deficit. You can group A and B. They're not responsive to the CDC plank. No, which was written into the counter plan. C is the design stuff. D, the counter plan would be the same thing as the budgeting. This card for design, it's about the budget deficit, which the counter plan would overcome because it's the federal government's funding. D, they say that the counter plan is in the CDC. You can cross by the answers above. The counter plan solves that. 4th, they say links to net benefit. No, this is not correct understanding. The federal government does the funding. You should not let them re-explain this argument because the state banks don't have to take from the state Federal Reserve banks because the federal government would fund it. 5, they say Fed follow on. The counter plan does not do this. 6, they say 50 state fiat. The counter plan doesn't fiat the 50 states. They say the BI stuff, if we win, say yes, then the side goes away. Empirically true, even if states take the counter plan, the funding incentive is too great. Patterson 15. States have been responsible for water related to the limitations of revenue. States have faced the pressure to find a meaning that's escalating expenses. Others have moved offers of funds to the provinces and authority with the shock where states have been unable to reuse them. Many states have placed federal workers effective and efficient control with those states with a huge tax review. Example, state refusing to direct federal money when they feel the conditional counter activities that manifest. Fiscal realities cast a long shadow. Advantage counter plan. Concede the perm, it's just a toss of competition. We won't go for it. The multi-plane stuff, protect argument, not the team. We're not going for this condo. First, it's good research. This one incentivizes team straight plus the kind of plans to save straight turns. Second is negative flag systems, is multiple human strategies for chasing straight turns. 3 is real world commercial debate, shows simple systems where the recognizes wrong. 4 is input processing. Multiple options for strategic strategy. Defense, first diminishing return, solve. 2 our choice, solve to use 3 our net, give and a half, right, speed first and last. 4, protect the argument, not the team. 5 is put us in solve. 6, and then we get what we did. Stagnate or resilience advantage. First, extend the posed evidence, no impact to stagnation. This is not a question of time frame, but rather a question of economic theories, which means that you should regard what they said. First, slower U.S. growth is sustainable now, more sustainable rates and fewer crashes shape the modern economy. B, it's inevitable. Some stagnation modeling will inevitably occur, but it's the best. And C, there's already pre-existing policies that are decentralized from the economy that are not the plan that would be able to diminish spillover into other countries' economies and try to stop stagnation if it were to occur. The AI, blockchain, and renewables cards are all warrants for state tech innovation, which are separate from nanotech, which is why we write defense to them. First, I'll spend pick this card here, no impact to AI. First, there would just be a brain, and if that AI is not able to mobilize. Second, humans are not smart enough to give AI capability and then not test it. Obviously, it would go through rigorous testing. The blockchain stuff, first, crypto, plays basically no role in our everyday economy. And second, technology is old and blockchain is too, which makes it irrelevant. Third, the renewable stuff, it's not, there's not enough technology being created right now. The process is slow. That's the Barth-19 evidence. Workers' advantage. First, extend the pink card, no food security, shortages go small, skirmishes but never escalate to interstate conflict, resource scarcity fails to expand nuclear war. That's the pinker evidence. Second, extend to 1 and T2, the no nutrient pollution. They've dropped this. This does assume the status quo. The membrane bioreactor is a certain specific amount of technology that's able to sit on the outside of farms and stop runoff from ever leaving them, which is technology that's being implemented right now. The democracy and populism stuff they did not answer 80%. The Lohman and Ackerman stuff here, that there's no impact to a lack of democracy, and that support for populist leaders is specifically outdated, which Trump definitely proves. The CDC stuff, some risk of mitigation means it's not dropped. I'll read another card. Structural flaws in staffing are the problem. Angle B and more is in 23. CDC reputation shaking, compromise, around leadership decisions, structural weaknesses are many. Regardless, government solves CDC, so it doesn't matter if we dropped it in the 1C.
counterplan text says that like CDC funding, like you mandate CDC funding.
Sure.
How's that? What part have you read that also solves employment?
You guys have made arguments about how the CDC is lacking resources, lacking workers. We think that giving funding and giving jobs would be enough to revitalize the CDC.
Okay, yeah, but like we just agreed on, you've only given funding. How does giving
No,
funding?
it also gives jobs.
What is it mandated that like which specific part of? Okay, alright, fine. The states say no. Why is this true now? Like if empirically states, why is the Patterson?
The Patterson card says that there have been little to no instances of states not accepting federal money. Also, I think it's just an argument that is kind of like it's just like an intuitive argument. Obviously, states would want to take the funding from this federal government because it would allow them to become their own labs of democracy and do policies over nanotech innovation. We think that there's a really low chance of them actually saying no because it doesn't really make a lot of sense that they wouldn't want to
The economics 15,
regulate technology.
on no stagnation on the first advantage, the economic 15, it's like 8 years old. Why is this true now for
I didn't
countries?
read that card.
Oh, okay. Sorry, my bad. Did you read the McHenry 18? I know you read the CDC part, but I just want to.
No, I didn't read it.
Okay. Why is food insecurity don't count?
We think that hungry people wouldn't go to war. We think that shortages would cause small skirmishes, which is what the Pinker evidence says, but in general, it would never escalate into interstate conflicts. That's just not really likely to happen.
I guess you're
Megan said
I guess your
hungry people don't
evidence.
go to war.
I guess your evidence doesn't assume like the apps like critical like things that go along with it. I guess like income and jobs. Where does the evidence specifically like filter those
Sure,
things?
but all
as
this
well?
food insecurity stuff is predicated on the nutrient runoff, which we have a card that.
The nutrient runoff is its own thing. It's more about soil erosion.
Sure, but the nutrient runoff stuff is responsive to that because it stops
Alright.
spreading it.
Okay, that's fine. The Madison counterplan. Why doesn't perm do both not work?
Well, first of all, we've read like a bunch of cards that said that the agency is specifically overstretched and that they have conflicting goals.
All of those
Yeah.
cards are tagged
About
Biden's
Biden.
policy
Yeah.
field. That's literally the heading when you click on the website. Why
Sure,
is that
that's
the federal
fine.
government?
The Edwards card says that expanding federal bureaucracy is really, really bad because it stifles state.
Literally at the
Look
top
at the size
says
of that card.
Biden is proposing. Like
Fine.
why?
Biden's
Regardless, it still links to the net benefit because you don't substantiate state experimentation if you have the federal government and the states do it at the exact same time.
The counterplan fiats that the federal government gives money to the states. How is that not federal government and state cooperation already? You've read
It is
cards.
cooperation, but it's not the federal
So
government
you read cards
implementing
on
a jobs
that
guarantee.
if federal government cooperation with state fails, you're already doing that. How
This
is
talks about actual policies trying to implement a jobs
money
program.
is a policy.
Your program.
What are our cards are some? We're just gonna be the capital flight DA, the ag DA.
Sorry, say that again.
Capital flight ag. On the Capital Flight DA, concede Capital Flight now. The link turn doesn't have any mechanism to solve that. It takes out any offense on this page. We're not going for it on the Ag DA. Concede no link to Ag DA. They don't have any new offense here. It's just their advantage. The food insecurity, nutrient pollution defense on case is terminal defense. We're not going for it. On two. Topical apps finance a job guarantee, basic income, or social security expansion through increased personal income taxes. That's bad thing. Our offense outweighs two reasons. One, limits the interim scheme to prevent nuclear war if Milliman's discussion from asset finance the plan with any tax under the sun or no tax at all. Like there could be tax on carbon, data, financial transactions, automation, space tourism, or deficit spending. Tax reform has been an entire proposed topic multiple times. It shouldn't be shoehorned onto this one. 2, ground therein temporarily placed at ground, making the entire field of regulatory taxation and potential advantages and its skirts the core objectives of redistribution, which are all based on the downsides to starting the rich, like capital flight, decreased growth, etc. Our topic creates balanced ground with stable economics and net and reasonable, therefore competitive equity outweighs is the only way to ensure debates are decided by skill rather than side. There's a clear topical version of the app, just finance the plan with increased progressive income taxes. The fact that it is they have no offense on the page. On we meet, they can't meet our interpretation. The plan obviously doesn't include an increase in progressive personal income taxes. This is simple and objective. Income taxes are deducted from your paycheck before it ever hits your bank account and are a direct function of how much money you make. The plan doesn't do any tax. It was conceded and crossed, and it doesn't access any of our offense. At best, the we meet argument amounts to saying that the transfer part of the plan reduces inequality enough to override the non-topical taxation portion. But if it's a nothing because the non-existent income tax is still non-topical, the remedy must be negative valid because anything else irreversibly skews, perhaps forcing us to waste speech time and conditional options or responding to a clearly non-topical half of the plan. They say their counter-interpretation, but it links to all of our offense. First, regulatory taxation. Any counter-interpret necessarily removes the focus from income and legitimizes have to do literally anything without a tax. As disaster from limits and ground is entirely distinct from redistributive taxation. And B, regulatory taxation shifts the whole focus of the topic away from income transfers towards discouraging any activity the states want to regulate. Unit 11. Achievement when all goes forward for any second redistribution of rich or redistribution of the controversial tax into third or government tax to change way for actors. Some taxes it is being forced to actions internalized under cost or entirely regulatory income tax, but apparently revenue raising redistributive complexity tax could be limited. Regulation should be should left pending relative to redistribution. C, fiscal redistribution is exclusively measured for the redistribution of all income from higher income to low income people. They're internalized anything that changes average incomes, which could be affected by anything in the economy. Code 19. Welfare redistributive fiscal policy, the extent of fiscal redistribution arises solely from redistribution of income from higher to lower income groups, redistribution of the pie rather than changes in average income to the size of pie. D, that both of the lid of the topic and infinitely less apt towards core econ DAs. Links. We're on to 18. Income redistribution, lower inequality, debt poverty, but accelerate growth, taxes, take away the percentage of workers that become it's reduced strategies promoting equality, raise and research short periods of way. Other policies now rely on redistribution, management, and golden and regions, generate equality and determination of equality. And governments go out and rate policy, reaching equality policy, to depend on individuals, among limited equity, parity, redistribution policies, generate policies that advance economic opportunities. And 2, effects T. A, fiscal redistribution reaches the inequality of income directly without reliance on any other actor. Fair money if we're an increase in fiscal redistribution presses equality to disposable income directly without any other actor taking part in shaping the final outcome. B, indirect taxes involved in external transaction. Okay. They say taxes or transfers that explodes limit includes deficit spending, personal income tax, corporate income tax, investment income, capital gains, estate, rental earnings, tax on interest earned, property tax, gift tax, plus the following taxes other teams have proposed, like the financial transaction tax from Green Hill, the land value tax from Glen North, and the value added tax from the Michigan Camp Path. And plus tax rules can be closed in other progressive taxes. There's a minimum of 6 progressive tax mechanisms that already exist. Part 23. Different types of progressive tax use federal income tax are not the only tax used by colony tax, American property gains, investment tax, income tax, rental earnings tax, and interest earned. They say predictability, but one or more predictable. FASB has a clear intent to define and defining it in the broad redistributive context. Our interest is view of inequality stated. They're all from a redistribution of income through taxation. Petition 16. Every discussion of income distributed inequality diminishes marketing for tax number saturated to total income tax including transfers. There's a transfer redistribution of income. This unit progressive reducing quality transfer from market is disposable income. 2, limits starting at too many aspects we can't prep them all. 3, quantifiable difference limits outweighs any unquantifiable difference in predictability. 4, debatability turns predictability. The afterground is ridiculous. 1, they get every tour with the topic JGPI funded through deficit spending or income taxes, or just through income taxes, as well as Social Security expenses funded by payroll taxes. The only thing they don't get are deficit spending and infinite funding advantages. The ground is also better. There's no functional limits. They don't solve our offense. There's simple limits explosion. The 2 teams will use different tax methods to read on, but a link terms that beat the state's counterplan. No reasonability. They're not reasonable. The difference between interpretations is ginormous. Those limits above. 2, T is substance. T is about semantic differences in fiscal redistribution.
But this is not an R prep. Wait, what's the 642?
Yes, probably, yeah.
What was that last thing you said on states?
The last thing I said on the 6 round.
Oh wait, did you not just say states one thing?
I thought you did.
Oh,
We just started. Alright, start now. Or we already started here.
Case, topicality, but 1 to 2. Case, topicality, counterclaim. Let me know when everybody gets some. Okay, no good. Case good. Start on resilience. Concede no impact to resilience. I'm not going for it. Concede is inevitable ag. Concede ag. I'm not going for it. No. Concede the no impact unions. Concede that there's no impact to civil war CDC. Pandemics are coming now with the high risk and the CDC shutting jobs as well. But only a job guarantee gets off through a CDC managed jobs program that's key to an effective national response that can prevent pandemics from causing extinction independently. CD staffing causes a biotech innovation decline that allows the Chinese sector to overtake American pharma that causes extinction. Now they say structural flaws. One, it's new, but then they say that the staffings are the flaw, but that's fine. The JG solves all structural flaws by creating jobs and making the program work through the contract tracing programs, which was literally the only response on the CDC scenario. Topicality. One is that this is not a normal taxes, which means that your burden for this to hang your hat on is very high because there's literally one app on this topic. That's the limits. I'm going for limits because it's crazy. There's only the wealth tax app. They couldn't give you one app. They said value-added tax, the FTT tax, but those are not wealth taxes, which means that they can't list you 2 apps that would go under this topic because every single one has to be funded under a wealth tax, which means that it creates the same generic debates without clash because they get the same shallow models because every negative DA's links are the same to the app. It kills research, which is a key standard to education, which they have gone for too. Now, they say that fiscal redistribution, literally all their cards are in the context of defining taxes. Look through them. I want them to go for T taxes because if you see it, all of their cards are defining taxes. Taxes is not in the topic. It's a fiscal redistribution, which means that only dividing fiscal redistribution hangs your ballot. One is that they've dropped the Kenworthy 8 evidence that says, quote, redistribution can be achieved through tax transfers or both in practice, which means that they have literally no evidence specific on the context of redistribution. Remember, they have to win that income taxes is what fiscal redistribution means, not just taxes, which means it's really hard. Now, it doesn't even matter because the big stars, they have dropped plan text in a vacuum, which means that we do meet. It doesn't matter if you believe in it or not. It's a technical concession, and it acts as a theoretical argument, meaning that they can read the same links in the 1NC and we'll just adjust in the 2AC. The plain text in the vacuum is the only non-arbitrary method for topicality. Kicking or rejecting all non-topical parts of the app solves their offense. Now, the first is countering new card tax and transfer penalty 21. Redistribution divided taxes transfers from one another. Fiscal redistribution divided transfer of resources via taxes transfer from policies from one to another. Now, prefer our interpretation limits. I already covered that above ground. They still get it because deficit spending is real world, and that's the only real world policy. Not every single policy is about an income tax. And then D, reasonability, because it preserves and neg researchability, which is key to education. And they dropped the 1NC evidence re-highlighting. It says that wealth is progressive taxation, which means that we meet too, and it's not just limited to an income tax states counterclaim. One is that there is no reason why the permutation in this round does not solve. I'm going for the perm do both because they make no links to the net benefit arguments. That's how you know that this counterplan is functionally illegitimate, which means that any chance that it doesn't link to the net benefit means you vote AF. One is I'll go on the mailer at all 19 evidence. It's in the context of federal cooperation over an election, which means that it's not about federal policy. It's not. And then the second card says that Biden's policies fail, and that's literally the heading of it. But Biden doesn't do the plan. It's the federal government. All of the evidence is specific to a government under Biden, but it doesn't matter. He has nothing to do with with actually implementing AF. The third is that the Biden's program would fail for the third card is the same thing. No wire by the federal government to it. Fourth is the big star is that the counterplan links to the net benefit because it takes money from the federal government. That is public policy, and that links to all of the perm do both cards, which means one, two things for your ballot. One, they can't solve because the net benefit, or two, it means that the perm do both works because it's still federal government cooperation because they're transferring money. That is federal government cooperation. Now, a new explanation of the terrorism from NATO biotech means we get a new response to NATO impacts are high. 17 NATO scenarios are much more limited and manageable than those imagined materials are more like building blocks, less great to the U.S. has established itself as the global leader in 90% science and commercialization. The high has been mutated by lack of real-world examples. Market examples. Now, they've dropped the Biden add-on, which means this counter plan is a non-starter. We said that Biden is going to win now. That's the Brewer 926 evidence that says that Republicans think and Democrats think that Donald Trump will lose. Now, the basic income that this counter plan fiats is unpopular, making Biden lose. It's a perception link, which means even if the states do it, it's still seen as Biden. That's with a Whisper 15 evidence. It says that the BI is flawed. Most people across all parties don't support it. The impact is a Trump win sparks nuclear war. That's the Burris 23 evidence that says if Trump were to get back to the White House, he would abandon the nuclear chain command, which means that he would just go first strike and cause extinction.
6:36. Counterpoint advantage 2.
Anyone need that again?
You vote neg in this debate. Coming out of the money yard, there is not a single coherent warrant for why the counterplan would not solve all the case. Plus, they have not gone for the offense, and the counterplan is questionable. They've only gone for the CDC offense on case, which means that you should have a high bar for voting out because the counterplan literally does CDC jobs. They do not understand the way that this counterplan works. I'll explain it again. It gives conditional funding to the states to implement an individual version of a jobs guarantee and continue to receive funding each year. They have dropped that the fact that the ORA will audit the states to make sure that each state is using those funds effectively and implementing progressive programs that resolve poverty and inequality. If the states reject the federal funds or fail to implement the programs, the federal government would claw back these funds and give a basic income to each person living at the state and level necessary. This answers the add-on, but I'll get to that later. Regardless, this basic income stuff would clearly be delayed because first the funding would go to them to ensure that they would be using it first, which means at the least you should think the nano impact outweighs on time frame. They have dropped this. The one card they have not read, they shouldn't get. The counterplan would revitalize state experimentation and federalism, giving the states the funding and latitude to create their individual programs, would revitalize state experimentation and allow them to have more flexible and coherent policy development, which allows for effective means of regulating nanotech because they have dropped that the states are the only effective body of doing so. Either way, if no regulations occur, it definitely outweighs. For self-regulating nanobots could cause literally microscopic machines to wipe out humanity, and nano-weaponization could be used by AI, terrorists, or militaries to gather containment and wipe out humanity. This turns all of their CDC stuff into pandemics because nanotech can be used to extend pandemics globally, which worsens the impact and used by bioterrorists as forms of weapon. The perm do both argument is obviously wrong. Stop flowing off of the dog. The first argument I made on this is that perm do both links to the net benefit. Obviously, having a federal jobs guarantee done at the same time as the state one would stifle state implementation because they feel as though they are not backed by the funds from the counterplan, but instead competing with the federal government to be able to solve. Second, there are just other issues with the firm. First, the federal implementation of the act would undermine state experimentation that links to the benefit. They need to be able to implement their own jobs guarantees. The federalism, they say that the cards are about Biden, but it's making a thesis level claim about federal intervention. Additionally, Fisher and Strifling cards from the 1 and C show why state creativity is key. Second, states will say no, the condition is critical. If the federal government gives a jobs guarantee either way, there's no incentive for the states to create their own. The government would say be able to claw it back for the states to comply. That's Fisher. Adding that the app would undermine solvency. Next, they said that the counterplan links to net benefit. No, this is a new explanation of the links to net benefit argument, which I said in the 2 and T they should not be able to get. The original argument was that states would take from banks at the same time as federal governments, which would trigger some type of net benefit. That is not what the counterplan does. The way that they have explained it also makes no sense because the counterplan does not take money from the federal government and as the federal government do deficit spending and give it back to the states. Regardless, that is not what the net benefit is based off of. So whatever, they say that the counterplan can solve the net benefit and that the net benefit it wouldn't solve. There's no warrant for this and no actual explanation reason why. So you should ignore it. This whole card is definitely wrong. They have based reading this new card on a new bioterror card that I put in the 2 and T doc but did not actually read, so they should not get this card. Regardless, whole is wrong. First, it's old. It talks about near-term scenarios referring to 2017. Second, it talks about nano innovation but not actually regulation of that technology. Third, it's not about the states. It's about the federal government. And fourth, it makes an argument about how nano is coming right now, but does not make an actual argument about regulation. The Biden add-on, they have dropped the Patterson card. They should not get the add-on. Patterson says that the states would say no. There's 4 main warrants. First, first is the pressure that they would get from the federal government to accept the states' Second, they would get massively taxed if they did not accept the funds. Third is empirics. Obviously, the states have not in the past ever denied money from the federal government. Fourth, the states would want to take the money because they want to do innovation and be independent bodies, independent from the government. Regardless, if you give them this card, nanotech still outweighs nuke war. First, I did the time frame stuff above that nano regulations are coming right now versus the Trump election and civil war. Second is magnitude. Trump has never, nuke war has not occurred because Trump has already been president, so there's no empirics to support that. The first advantage, they only go for the pandemic scenario. Don't let them go for anything else. It's not try or die because the counter plan solves all of it. It gives funding and jobs to the CDC, which is basically what the app does. It is not a new policy, but what the states can implement it because they said themselves the states cannot do CDC innovation. It's only the federal government, so this will not stifle innovation because the states can't implement things into the CDC.
Pandemics are coming now with high risk in the CDC shedding jobs as well, but only a job unity gets all through a CDC-managed jobs program that's key to an effective national response that can prevent pandemics from causing extinction. Independently, CDC is having causes biotech innovation decline that allows the Chinese sector to overtake American pharma extinction. Now go do the counter plan. Top level, I don't need a solvency differential argument if there is a dissat to the counterclaim, which means the dissat is the dissat versus the net benefit. The new core outweighs nanotech. No reason. I'll do more analysis down below, but I'll start with the permutation. First is that there's no reason why the permutation doesn't solve. No link benefits they've argument are horrible. I'll first start with the Myriadol 19 card. Evidence is context of federal cooperation over an election, which means it's not about federal policy. The card is also not about a state and federal government cooperation, but it's about federal agency, which means it's not specific to the counterclaim mechanism. Two is that the second card heading is literally Biden's policy bills, means that Biden doesn't do the land, it's the federal government. And three is that the Biden's program would bill for so many regions, which means that there's no more for why the federal government can do it. Four, the counterclaim takes money from the federal government, which means that there will always be some federal government cooperation, which means the program would work. Now they say, I'll do the line by line here, they say it's a thesis level claim no, says that Biden's specific policies change with states, and they say it's a competing with the federal government. There's no evidence for why, even if then the states feel as if they were competing to the money which the federal government needs, a solvency deficit to the and they say deficit spending with the federal government is still cooperating with the states by giving them money, which means that it takes out all their cards they read on the permutation, and obviously that would solve. And then they say a new explanation of terrorism with the NATO biotech means the impact is gone. But you read a card about that's more on the impact and benefit.
Look,
they do federal spending.
They do federal spending, which means they have to link, which means the permutation is the best argument. Like
all their deficits,
are
on
just
the
about
permutation are about
federal
cooperation.
Exactly.
They do federal
Yeah.
cooperation. Say that.
I already did. The Biden.
The only response you have coming out of the 2NR is that it's a say no argument. That's just functionally wrong. They have messed up the dissat the entire round. It's not a say no argument because they basically first I'll start with the uniqueness that Biden is going to win now. That's the more evidence that says the Republicans will lose presidential election if Trump is on the knee, and I think Biden wins. Now we've literally read that the West for 15 evidence that a basic income is popular and makes Biden lose. The plan text says that you use a basic income, which means that it links to the counterplan. Now it was specifically said that support for UBI is conducive to building a sustained coalition that's flawed, and it would increase it would make Biden lose because it would be cost precious political capital that would be at the expense of objectives and cross a high opportunity cost that would be too high to be sustainable and would prevent Biden from actually winning. Now that cause, if Biden doesn't win, that Trump wins, and Trump wins, that causes nuclear war. That's the verse 23 of it. So when Trump, that the White House exhibit rationality, you can still use nuclear weapons with the expectations of nuclear disobedience, and that Trump order to use could be an aberrant outcome of nuclear war that will lead up to extinction. Now I'll do the impact calc here. The Biden here on the Biden add-on. Low risk of the net benefit means they should be very comfortable voting out when they functionally drop the net benefit add-on. Means that you should be very comfortable voting on a high solvency differential outweighs a low risk of the net benefit. Now new core outweighs nanotech for two reasons. One is time frame. As soon as Trump gets in office, the impact will trigger. The app card says that nanotech takes as long as it takes a long time, and out of the 2NR, there was not a coherent explanation for why states solved the nanotech scenario. And B, the magnitude. The counterbalance laws for the U.S. not global nanotech, but the Trump impact is Trump launching first strike everywhere. And I'll do more here, specifically on time frame. There's literally no way that nanotech war comes first. You have to think about it through a policy perspective. If elections come first and there's no time frame that's actually given to you by the negative, you should develop some sufficiency framing because we are the only ones who actually have a time frame because the election is this year. And magnitude because they've also not read a single card that's applicable to the dissat. Remember that it has to come first because they have not read any impact defense and they functionally messed up the dissat the entire round. They've only responded with states say no arguments, which means that they're 100% risk of the dissat, which means for the next 1 minute, all I have to do is why NATO impacts are NATO impact defense. I'll do it here. The whole evidence, 17 evidence is fantastic. You should go read it after round. There's 3 warrants that went drop coming out of the 2NR. First is that it's being empirically hyped and that there's no real world examples of it. That's huge. If you believe that maybe even if NATO gets used, it's not a real world example of extinction. It has never actually escalated to any deaths before. And 2, the nanotech is very hard to use. Whole quotes at the end of the card appear as impenetrable walls of infinite things. It means that it can never actually escalate. And 3, that the US has globalized itself as a global leader, which means in nanotech, which means if there was some type of attack, it wouldn't escalate because the U.S. would not know to do it, would know not to do that. And they made us do argument. They said it's not about states. It doesn't have to be. It's an empirical analysis.
They say the basic.
They say the basic income delay argument doesn't make sense because the election will be in November. Even if it would happen 4 months after fiating the plan, it still makes Biden lose. That argument is dumb. Look, the dissat outweighs the internal net benefit. They have no defense on it. They just read states say no. Get it.
Next card, Dr. Stuff.
Do judges need to have card dogs?
no, guidance is good. Yeah.
I'll get it on.
Congratulations to both teams on making quarterfinals. The decision is a 2-1 for the affirmative from Johnson. And I'll start. I sat, and I ended up thinking that basically there's no elections disad. I think you misunderstood the elections disad, or the counter plan. Your link is entirely based on implementation of a basic income. Their argument is it will never be implemented because the states are going to do it, are going to do the jobs guarantee. And even if it does have to get implemented, it's going to get implemented post-election. I think if you're making some arguments about perception or the announcement portion of that those are reasons that I could vote on the elections disad, but I don't think you're accessing that. The area I spent more time on, and I suspect the other two judges voted on, are the perm do both. I ended up thinking that the aft does shift the explanation of the perm a little bit, but also that the perm does lead to the state saying no. I think some of the offense they have about the perm, about the state saying no, would undermine state leadership on regulation. And so I think it ends up linking to the net benefit, and that the while the neg cards do discuss Biden, I did think the warrants of the cards are generic to federal action, and something that would give a risk of the perm linking to the nanotech net benefit. While you had some defense on nanotech, I don't think it was enough to take out the scenario. And I don't think you are spending any time on why the CDC advantage is external and why the hiring stuff doesn't solve. So I end up thinking counterplan solves 100%, and there is some minimal risk that the perm still links to the net benefit.
Yeah, I was super close from giving that exact same RFD. But because the 2AR is just not answering state say yes, so there wouldn't be a need for the UBI. But although I think sort of the 2 and R like extrapolation of say yes was kind of new, so I have a lower threshold for voting half. I still think that there's some risk that the announcement of a policy that we would do a UBI if states fail to comply is sort of sufficient to access some risk of a link, but I think any uncertainty about it is resolved by the permutation. I think that the permutation is able to resolve some of the apprehensions. I think that with the inclusion of the plan, it might cause competition between the job guarantee. I think it would still result in the states receiving a blank check, which is then able to be used for funding innovations and developing regulations of nanotech. I think that the app definitely needs to make this argument more clear, and I think the neg needs to contextualize the permutation in the context of regulation of nanotech. I think that the neg is ahead on the impact portion of the debate. I think that the app certainly wins that a Trump victory causes extinction, which is on the equivalent magnitude of nanobots, but the only difference is that the election is in months, while intuitively nanobots are self-replicating and state experimentation would probably take a longer time. So I think that given that the 2NR's sort of new extrapolation in terms of answering the add-on were a bit new, I think that any sort of risk of the disadd to the counterplan probably outweighs the impact from the permutation would be able to solve a portion of state experimentation.
Okay. Well, quick before I start, Roby, shouldn't you go to like your room and wait for the RFD so they don't hunt you down? Thanks, buddy. Okay, so I'm much more half-sided on the question of the disadd of the counterplan. The block just like doesn't really answer this. It's on a different sheet. The only cross-app that I think is really applicable is this whole like second link of the counterplan only kicks in if states say no, so it's a say yes question. But this is never really explained thoroughly as a no link argument until the 2NR. And so like I'm gonna protect the 1AR a little bit here. I think even if that's true, like I'm gonna totally give them credit on like the perception of it. Like if the counterplan's implemented, yes, it has this like threatening plank about we'll just claw, like your explanation is like there will be this mechanism by which the federal government will just claw back money from the states and pressure them into saying yes, which would mean that everybody would be aware that there's a possible basic income coming into existence, so it would still have an electoral effect. So like I think this disadd still super applicable, not really much of an answer, and the answer you do have I don't think obliterates the risk of the link. So like I think that just clear disadd of the counterplan. The impact to it definitely faster than nanotech. So like on that alone, I feel pretty confident on the app side of things. That said, I think this also your primary answer to it creates some tension on the links to the net benefit. If your argument about no linking this disadd is true, that states would feel pressured into accepting the funds due to the threat of a clawback, that seems to like really stymie or stifle their opportunity to experiment with a job guarantee or not do one at all, which I think is like a really powerful reason why the links to the net benefit would be true, because it's hard to have it both ways as to why all states would say yes, and there would still be this like ample room for state experimentation in the world of things like nanotechnology or other types of regulations that would be carved out due to, you know, the space created by this type of counterplan. So I think it's just like hard for you to simultaneously answer this disadd and win a compelling reason why the counterplan does not link to the net benefit. Once I kind of conclude with that little bit of reasoning, it's really hard for me to disentangle why do both would link to the net benefit, but your say yes answers do not link to the net benefit. So like absent the disadd, I still feel pretty comfortable on just like a not much of a risk of the net benefit, permutation is sufficient. That aside, I think that like the risk of this election's disadd is enough for me in the face of like the counterplan probably not resolving its own internal net benefit. That said, there's just like some frustrating drops in not answering of things that are happening, like the app never really answers this link about the CDC, and then you decided the 1AR to just go for the CDC, which means absent the Biden stuff, you're probably in a weird spot without offense. Never really answering the nanotech stuff until later. This defensive card that comes in the 1AR doesn't even matter to me because I don't think you get it. Also just like the concession of the selections disadd, just like there's just, you know, straight not answering things that are happening throughout the debate, which is slightly frustrating. But with what was there, like, that's why I voted out.
And I really think, just read a card that the app links to the Biden stuff as well. Right? Like when they read that, my first thought was, just read a card that says the app links, kick out of the counterplan and go all in on this disadd that they just read for you.
It's 100% what I thought was gonna happen.
The lawyer was also making arguments for why Biden has nothing to do with the app when they were answering the permutation of both arguments. The 2NR could concede Biden is not relevant for the plan, so why would it be tied to a UBI?
Okay. Jared, you said that the 2NR extrapolation of the say yes was new. I was just like the warrants in the card, like what did you think was new?
Like in terms of applying it to the add-on and saying that because states would say yes, then Biden would not be tied to the plan. I think given that the 2EC read a link that a UBI policy would be detrimental towards Biden's chances of winning the election, I think that is sufficient to answer the extrapolation.
So just sit on like the question of the link more is what you're saying.
Yeah, just like answer that out of the block.
Okay.
A 2NR where we kicked the main plank and just went for the CDC plank plus they also linked to their elections DA.
That would be good. But like in the block, that would be smart.
Well, but I think kicking the plank, you could make an argument that that means no link to the elections DA.
Right. That's
Not
what
that
I'm
they
saying,
link to the elections DA, but that makes it a no link to the elections DA. I don't remember a cross-ex discussion on whether we can kick planks and things like that, so I'm not sure.
Is the basic income a plank though? Is it not just like?
Yeah,
The
so
basic income was part of the conditionality, but there were two planks. There was
Yeah.
the whole jobs guarantee
And then the
versus
CDC.
BI plank, and then a CDC plank. So when you only go for the CDC
Well, they
part,
could have
they
only
could have
gone-
just gone for the CDC plank and said,
After
this
the
doesn't include the BI, that means we spike out of the link to elections.
Wait, what would be the net benefit?
Yeah, would you?
Yeah,
get
there
the
wouldn't be a net benefit.
Yeah.
I guess wouldn't the disadvantage be the net benefit?
Right, we would have
Because
had to
then-
read in the block.
Oh,
Read
yeah.
it.
Yeah, it would be,
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, we don't have.
Well, thanks guys for judging.
Yep.
And good debate, good luck.
Katie, is there a
that's what I was told last night, but that was also the same conversation I was told all the two breaks, so who knows?
Oh, yeah.
I can take this.
You had an internal scenario in the one EC about giving the states money, right?
Yeah.
Why'd y'all keep it? Does that mean that they
And the firm.
it read I don't know what the word is, but
That makes sense. That makes it a lot easier. Because my partner, he thought that like this representation.
no, because you didn't have options. But
Oh, yeah, because there's a reason